Whiskey and Wade going all the way. What up, world? Welcome back to another episode of the Whiskey and Wade Show with me, your host, Tommy Mac.
Me, your better host, Tara McKenna.
And we are in association with the #1 competitions page in the world, Our Kings. Make sure you check them out on Instagram, all social media.
You want a car, you want a house, you want money, you want stupid. I even enter the stuff I don't need, like toolboxes. I don't even know how to build anything. I'm entering toolbox competitions.
Listen, if you just put your name in the hat, a win's a win.
It's a win.
But today we're gonna have a very serious story, and one that needs to get out there. We're joined by a very special guest, a victim of child sexual abuse, and the founder of Renegade Advocacy. You can check them out on Instagram. It's Haileigh Lamont. Welcome to the gym, Haileigh.
Thank you.
We're live here in Lab Fitness, by the way, too. Once again, so check out Lab Fitness on labfitnessbelfast.co.uk. And Haileigh, you done a boxing event and you done it out of here. What was it? A joint, two gyms, but Paddy Gal, who owns here?
Yeah, so I started going to a wee boxing gym and doing a bit of PT in about a year ago to try and get out the rage. I thought, get into the boxing. And a couple of months in, there was talk of a white collar boxing event because, like, me and my friends, there's nothing in moderation. So it's all in. Let's do a white collar event. And I thought, do you know what? I think this would actually be great. Everybody's really up for it. It would be a class night, team building and all that kind of thing. But the more we kind of started reaching out to people to try and get it organised, it kind of all fell through and it seemed like it wasn't going to happen. And I just thought, like, how hard could it be?
Yeah.
Famous last words, how hard could it be? Oh my God. I was like boxing promoter and all. Like,
You done
I
it all?
done the works. Yeah, I done
That's
absolutely
stress.
everything. I sold all the tickets, organised the venue, organised all the fighters, was trying to set up a business in the background too.
Crazy.
Absolutely everything.
Did you enjoy it?
It was brilliant.
You enjoyed
It was
the
a
fight?
brilliant
I
show.
loved the chaos of it all.
Did you
like-
fight on it as well?
No, I didn't fight on it
Oh.
because I thought my nerves will be wrecked because
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my story a wee bit and try and
Yeah.
raise some awareness at the start of the night. And I thought if I have to do that
It's too much.
Yeah,
and then get into the
it's
ring
too much
too.
pressure.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I know you've started a campaign and stuff, but let's bring it back to where you started with the child sexual abuse. You're 8 years old.
Yeah, my earliest memory of the sexual abuse starting was whenever I was about 7 or 8.
Right. And how did it
How did
start?
it start? Yeah.
So the perpetrator's name's Tommy Harris. So he's been convicted and sentenced and is in jail now. He came into my life whenever I was about 6 years old, and on reflection as an adult, started the grooming pretty much immediately. Isolating me from my family, and I suppose, like, as a child, thinking this is a person in a position of trust and being affectionate, and then that kind of turned into more. And the way that I described it whenever I went to the police to disclose what was done to me was it felt like a spell had been put on me because there was never any, like, aggressive, like, threats, like, if you tell anybody. And I know that is the case with some people, but it wasn't like that with mine. It was a campaign of grooming for a number of years to them where, as a child, in a child's mind, you don't have that, like, awareness or being able to
You're
think like
following
this is
your
right or
adult
wrong.
spot as well. Like, am I right? Was it your stepfather?
Yeah,
So it's a parental figure as well. So you're trusted in them.
yeah,
And I used to work in a youth project, and there was victims of abuse,
yeah,
and a lot of them didn't even realize that what was happening was wrong because their abuser was telling them that they were doing something good. Were you in that position?
No, it was never. It was just it just became the norm. It's not like it was an isolated incident where that was the only thing that he did to me. Like you say, he was also playing the role of my father, and he was doing, like, the family stuff. And then this, like, kind of came into it whenever I was about 7 or 8. But even just you saying there about kids not understanding, like, whenever I went to disclose back in 2020 to the PSNI, I didn't walk into that police station and say, Tommy Harris is a rapist, he raped me whenever I was a child. I went in and said, I've been sexually abused when I was a kid and I just can't take it anymore. And just told what he had done to me. it was the PSNI investigating officer had to tell me that what he was doing was rape, and that took a long, long time for me to come to terms with, because society, I think, does have this sort of idea of, well, it's just the word rape, it's not nice, and you kind of associate it with the things that you see in the TVs and the movies, like this creep that drags you down an entry
Alleyway.
with a
Yeah.
greasy comb over. It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I don't know what started rape, but did the rape like start immediately, or was it like a process
No,
of
it was like a process, like a build up kind of thing.
right?
So yeah, like it was, yeah, I don't know how to describe it without
So
getting
yeah,
into too much detail, but yeah, it wasn't like rape immediately whenever I was 7 or 8. The grooming started, and I
Mm.
suppose he was kind of
building up that.
building up and testing out to see what he could get away with.
And would no one like around like the other family members and stuff not have noticed of
Well, as an adult, whenever I reflect on that, there's certainly things that if,
you seen?
if it was my friend's children
Mm,
and I seen certain things, I would be like, call the cops on
yeah,
that guy or get him out of your house.
yeah,
But at the time, no. But then perpetrators abuse everybody around them too. You know
yeah.
what I mean? He
So,
would have isolated my family and pretended to be this, perfect stepfather that come
mm,
in and saved the day, and now he's looking after me and my mum and things like that.
and was it just you, or was it other people he was?
So, I didn't have any. I only my brother was born whenever I was 15, so there
Mm,
was only me.
So you're like an
okay,
only
yeah,
child
all right.
growing
Mm-hmm.
up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did he have other
other
victims, like,
victims.
or like any like cousins or any other kids that you were
Not
aware
that
of?
I know of, but again, on reflection, like he was a creep. And
Mm,
even whenever I came forward, there was people that kind of grew up that were the same age as me, maybe like their mums and dads were in and out of our house, and they were saying things to me like, he was always so obsessed with you, or he was real weirdo. Like, he
yeah,
obviously gave off some sort of
vibe,
vibe. To
yeah.
me, it was like my normal, but
So
even that is like people picking up on that. Like,
yeah.
why
Wh-
wouldn't
When
anybody
did you
explore?
start really like? Obviously at 8, you don't realize anything's going wrong. When did you
Yeah.
start realizing there's something right?
I think whenever you kind of go into like transforming into being a teenager,
Mm,
because you're full of hormones and you're quite uncomfortable in your body whenever
no,
you're a teenager anyway, and you're raging, and it's just you don't feel nice anyway. And I just started to feel really, really, really uncomfortable in my body, like, and my mental health, obviously. Like, I was just
yeah,
wanted a way out, and because it was happening in my home, like, there was nowhere that I could
no
go
off
really
switch.
apart from school that I got a break. Mhm.
And
So
how was like school and all? Was it affecting school and affecting
Yeah.
friendship and affecting
Yeah,
everything?
I was so isolated throughout school, always kept myself to myself. Like, I wasn't allowed to do extracurricular things. I wasn't allowed to stay behind in school to go to clubs and things like that. I never ever wanted anybody to get too close to me.
was that because did he not want you to get involved in
Yeah.
like more stuff in case you said something?
He was just very possessive. So he wouldn't, like, there was consequences for me, like emotional and psychological abuse. If I had a said, I want to go to this after schools club, it would have been like getting the silent treatment and all, like proper
That's
psychological
insane.
abuse.
Uh,
Um,
would your mother have got that kind of treatment as well, where she would have been isolated? And
um, yeah, on reflection, yeah, she would have.
So see when so from you said the grooming it started like from 7
Yeah.
and it wasn't like penetrative sex.
Mm-hmm.
When did he start the up with then? When was it when you got to the teenage years and he started to rape you?
Yeah.
And when that happened, did you not have any friends or close relatives who you could? Because obviously that I assume that would have been the first time you would have had sex. And like when you're a young person, the first time you had sex, you go and tell your mate or
Mm-hmm.
you tell someone. Did you
Mm-hmm.
have anyone who you could speak to about?
I think something to point out, like the language that you're using there, which is important to highlight, is that I wasn't having sex. I was
Sorry,
no,
yeah,
no, no, no.
yeah,
It's fine. It's good to talk about these things, but it's like I was being abused. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
That's what I
absolutely,
mean. So
no,
yeah,
don't apologize.
yeah,
Don't apologize. It's all good. But even like language like that being used, it makes a difference in the way we as
big time.
societies interpret these things. A couple of things. This had been going on. He was in my life from I was 6. By the time I was getting into my teenage years, the fear that I had of him, like there's no way I would have told anybody.
Mm.
Mm,
And absolutely, yes, I was completely robbed of having those
Childhood.
conversations. Like, obviously, then whenever I got older and got a boyfriend and whatever,
Mm.
like you have them girly chats, but absolutely no way would I have ever disclosed. I was so frightened of him constantly.
Was he also like beating you as well? Is that why you were afraid of him, or was it never?
No.
Was never? It
psychological,
was just
just think about it.
Psychological
psychological.
abuse, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and I suppose unless you've lived through something like that, but even if you have ever been in like a bit of an abusive relationship where you feel like you're going mad, it's like gaslighting,
Yeah.
and you're wondering what's going on, and you have this fear, and you maybe do things for an easy life and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that from a child's mind. If you have kids of your own, if somebody who's in a position of trust is doing not only like physically harming them and
Mm.
abusing them, but also the psychological abuse and the silent treatment, and like he was very aggressive around the house too.
Mm.
He always would have talked about how much of a good fighter he was and all, which is so like embarrassing now,
Yeah.
looking back the way he used to behave towards a child.
Mm.
Because out in the real world with other like men, you wouldn't have been getting on like that.
Yeah.
What is bringing? I say we're trying not to curse, but
No,
it's what
no.
a scumbag.
But it is like, get angry about it. Like, people need to get angry about it because it's happening. Like, it's happening everywhere to
Yeah.
everybody.
Mhm.
Like, and even sort of now, I've dedicated my career to raise awareness and try and make things better for other victims.
Mm.
Um, People don't even need to say it happened to me, Haileigh. I'd say at least twice a day in my work, people will go, I get it, or I'm really glad that you're doing this.
Mm.
And you know that
And I
they
know
say.
that it's because they too have experienced it.
So see, the abuse, was it happening every night?
It was happening, yeah. It was constant
So
every day.
when
Yep.
you were going to bed at night, and
Mm,
then like would you hear him coming up the stairs, or like
no.
were you going in the Jesus, like here
No,
we
it
go
didn't.
again
It
and
actually
panicking?
didn't. For me, it didn't happen like that. And it's interesting because whenever I went to the police and give my initial statement, the police officer said to me, like, did he sneak into your bedroom at night? And I
Mm.
remember thinking, it didn't happen like that.
What way did it happen?
So it happened during the day mostly, whenever there was like my mum was at work.
Did
So
he
would
work?
your the mummy not have known about it at all?
Nobody knew about it.
Did he work? No.
He worked, yeah, but whenever he would have got home quite early from work.
And then like that must have been such a weight, you've went through it during the day, and then your mummy comes in to work, and
Yeah.
then you're sitting having dinner, trying to act
It
normal.
was suffocating is what it felt like. And whenever I was a kid, I done absolutely everything, like constantly juggling the people around me so that nobody would pick up on it because I feared if somebody picked up on it, he would blame me for him getting exposed and then I would get into more trouble. Or
Mm.
like for a long, long period of time, I thought he'll just kill me or he'll kidnap me or something
Mm.
if people find out what he has done.
See, in school, did you ever do any? Because I remember in school, and my kids in school now got a letter about
Hmm.
awareness about
Yeah,
abuse. Did you ever do any stuff like that in school where they're talking? Now, if someone does this,
yeah,
report and go through the protocols.
yeah.
Did that ever happen in school and you're going, this is happening to me, but they didn't anything
No,
to do that in school?
it never happened then. And obviously now there are campaigns for relationship and sexual education to be compulsory in schools, and
Mm.
some schools are pushing back saying the kids are too young to know about this, and it has kind of become overshadowed with um like sexuality sort of education about being straight and gay and all that kind of
Mm.
thing. I campaign for inappropriate behavior, like you say, what is right, what is wrong, what to do if this is happening to you, what the options are, how you will be treated, how you will be protected, what is healthy relationship with the adults in your life. Absolutely. If that had been in my school, I would have.
Yeah.
Why not?
I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, when you knew you were gonna be alone with this guy at home, did you ever think about trying to go somewhere else and wait until their mummy got home, or were you just
Yeah, I
like,
did. My grandparents lived not too far away from the house that I lived in, and I stayed there every day after school. But then he would have texted or phoned and
oh,
said he was
come
on
back?
his way
Yeah.
home. And I was so frightened of him that I knew I just had to do, or as a child, I just had to be there whenever he said.
Did you ever, or I'm sure you did when you got a bit older, say, right, this has to stop?
Yeah.
What
Oh,
age were you?
did I say that to him?
Yeah.
Mm.
Him and I never had a conversation about it.
Really?
It was never spoke about.
So
As I started to get like into my teenage years and get a wee bit older, I think he could tell that I hated him
mm,
and had like a bad attitude towards him. But at that time, then his approach changed to me, and it was emotional abuse and the like, you don't love me. Oh, whenever you leave home to go to university, I'm going to be all on my own, like pathetic. That was his
good.
approach then. Good,
Well,
absolutely. And I did. Like I was so behind in my schoolwork because obviously my
right.
head was melted in
Yeah.
school, but I got my A levels and I got a place in university by the skin of my teeth.
Is that why you kind of stopped because you moved out at 18? Did you?
Yep.
Did you move? And that's the only reason to stop because you moved out.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts.
Well, did you have a mixed kind of, looking back, did you have a mixed feelings where he is kind of like your daddy? Because I would say things like that to my kids on this. Oh, when you grow up,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna leave me. But that
Mm-hmm.
being genuine, like,
Yep.
did you feel? And then my daughters or sometimes will go, "Oh no, I'm never gonna leave you." No,
Yeah.
like, but they're
I
only.
know, but you
But did you
wouldn't.
feel kind of he is my daddy, kind of,
Yeah.
as well as you're scared? But did you have a
I
wee bit of
think
love for him?
that sort of, oh, I have a daddy in my life now kind of left me whenever I was about, I would say, 12, 13. I knew that he wasn't. And just like what you're saying, because of course, like daddy daughter relationships,
Mm.
when they're genuine and from a place of care, you are going to say wee things like that, but you on the same like conversation aren't going to say you're not allowed to go to an after schools club because I
Mm.
want you here with me. Do you know, you want
Yeah.
you want your kids to thrive and you want them to know that their daddy has their back, and that's why
Well,
you're saying those things.
most daddies are trying to get their kids to freaking
Yeah,
get out
yeah,
of
I know.
here. If I come home and my kids are in their grannies and their grannies ringing me,
You're
oh, do
delighted.
you want to stay in your grannies for a
I
while?
know. Yeah.
But yeah, like, do you notice, like, pick up now that you're an adult? Do you pick up on a lot of kids that maybe are going through that kind of thing? You would see it easier.
Yeah, I'm very hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that I walk about and psychoanalyze
Yeah.
every parent and kid, but I would say, yeah, if there's definitely kids that I have met and young adults that I have met that I know that there is something going
Mm.
on. And I suppose at that stage for me as a professional, it's just to plant the seed of this is what you can do if you really want to, and this is the support that's available, and
Yeah.
this is right, and this is not right, and try and validate how they're feeling. But it's something that it needs to be the right time for the person if and when they want to come forward.
How did it affect your relationships with boys in once you start getting
12 and
boyfriends in
13.
your teenage years? Isn't that when you?
Well, yeah,
Not
whenever I
me.
was like 18, 19, I had a boyfriend, and to be honest, and I think this surprises people, it hasn't really affected
No.
my relationships. If anything, I feel empowered because I'm in control of my body now. I'm in control of my mind, and the
So you could say
relationships
no,
around me.
or yeah.
Yeah.
And has that has your boyfriends ever noticed any different
Yeah.
behavior in you, or?
No.
Like while abuse was going on, you said you had a boyfriend while abuse.
No, I
Oh.
think like after that.
Or was it
Oh.
after?
Mhm.
So did you never have like any boyfriends growing up then? But that's
No way, it was too much of a risk.
Yeah.
I was like, I had a boyfriend, but like, I mean, it was nothing more than like going to the cinema kind of thing. Before I was 18, but it was just too much of a risk.
Did you develop a hatred for men or anything during that time?
No,
Or did you know some people like if they're getting abused and they know they'll
Yep.
try and blame every
Yeah.
man's the same, but did you just know that he
No,
was
I
just
was
a
I just
scumbag?
hated him. What I find is that I'm very clued in when it comes to men who hate all women, and I'm
Mm.
very quick to understand when a man has some sort of trauma,
Mm.
and usually that comes from a mother wound where maybe his mom wasn't emotionally available, and then he has this resentment towards women and hates women, and I pick up on that quite quickly.
Yeah.
If anything, I probably looked around me to the men in my life that could potentially protect me from him.
Did you feel any animosity towards them, the men in your life who didn't protect you?
Um, no.
No.
I think the older that I've got and the more time has went on, I have given myself permission to be angry at the ones that should have protected me. But no, I just was in survival mode. Get your A levels, get to university, get out of the house, and figure out how you're going to deal with this. And then, whenever I did get the grades and go to university, I lost the plot because I had all this freedom where it was
Mhm.
like, I have a life now and I can have a boyfriend and I can have friends. And
Did you just quickly forget it? Like, 'cause it wasn't until you were 30 that you went to the police. So
yeah,
once you left the house, did you just kind of try and forget about it and try and block it out, and then it just came
yeah,
back, and that's
completely suppressed it. Yeah.
yeah.
Left the house, went to uni, thought I'm a free bird now. This is
Try and
great.
try and be
Try and be
normal.
normal, try
Yeah.
and make up for it. And actually, what I was doing was just mimicking, like being normal. Sometimes I say it's like I felt like a sim character because you're just like copying what's normal. Like, oh, we'll go to a bar and I'll get drunk and I'll book a wee holiday and
Yeah.
like just getting on with it. But actually, I was just suppressing it. And I moved to Australia whenever I was about 26, 27.
Mm.
And it was like, this is following me. Like, I can go to the ends of the earth. It's just going to keep
Mhm.
popping its head back up.
Oh, and how come? What happened that you did it? Finally, just go. I need to go to the police. What was it?
It just, I felt like a fraud, to be honest. I am the friend that people come to get advice. And I suppose like I'm always there for the people in my life and always have been. So my friends were coming to me and we were talking about different things. And you start to have like an opinion as you get older. How do I feel about the world? What is my sort of opinion on things? And I was like, you are a fraud, Haileigh, because you know that there's a pedophile living back in your family home.
And were you seeing him at the family home and just being like
Yeah, like
disgusted that he's still there?
Disgusted, yeah.
And like you
Whenever,
don't know who else he's
yeah,
Oh,
in
yeah?
using.
contact with the
Yeah.
guilt. A couple of my good friends started to have children, and that really kind of triggered something in me, and I felt very protective. And yeah, I moved back from Australia, and I was disgusted. Like, went back as a surprise for Christmas, and couldn't even tolerate being in the same room as him. It was like, I need to face the music here. This is not going to go away.
Were you ever? Because you said your wee brother was 15.
I
Or,
was 15
sorry.
whenever, yeah.
Were you ever worried when you were away, or like he's in the house with that monster?
Yeah, it broke my heart. Like, and that makes me dead upset because whenever I moved away to Australia, I didn't want to go away. I was just running away from him. And yeah, I really, really don't feel good about the fact that I left and left my brother
Yeah.
back in the house because, you know, I don't, that's my brother's business and I'm not going to talk on that. Like, we've had the conversation. He said it didn't happen to him. But like I say, Tommy Harris was a bastard and he wasn't nice to live with.
Yeah.
Regardless of sexual abuse or no sexual abuse, he was not good.
So see, you came home and it probably took you years to build up the courage
Yeah.
to go to the police. Once you did, how long did it take for the court proceedings to get underway?
So I went to the police station on the 7th of July 2020 and done my initial statement. And then what you have to do is do a attaining best evidence interview. All victims of sexual violence have to do that, where you go in and that's your evidence is your lived experience. Tell us why you're here, what was done to you. So I had to do that. And then the police are left sort of to investigate it. So all in, my whole justice journey was a year and a half. So from July 2020 to November 2021. And that's unheard of. Like, there's cases there's like up to 7 years.
Were you prepared for the long haul?
No.
Or be glad it went
No,
fast
my
then?
Yeah, it was
God.
just gonna be straightforward.
I walked into that police station thinking, I've been sexually abused.
Mm.
Here's who done it.
And
And they
if
were going to go up and arrest him, and that was going to be me, like, moving on with my life, you
they
know.
didn't arrest him straight away or nothing, no,
Didn't
nothing.
what,
They
sorry?
didn't arrest him straight away. He just
No. The criminal justice process is so defendant-centric. It is not fair for victims at all. It's like the burden of proof lies with the prosecution. You are prosecuting this criminal.
mm,
Victims have to go out of their way to provide detailed descriptions of what happened, get all of the evidence, stand up in court, be cross-examined. See, criminals, defendants,
mm,
they can go through the whole thing without saying anything.
yeah.
That's up to you to prove it. And obviously, this happened so long, so long ago.
Yeah.
How did you have any evidence, or
So yeah, because it's historic, because it was whenever I was a child and I was an adult now. My evidence was my lived experience. So whenever I went in to do the attaining best evidence interview, and it's because I was so traumatized by it, but I
Mm.
could remember it all, like blessing and a curse,
Mm.
because it got me a conviction. But I went in and explained everything that he had done, nearly in chronological order, from my earliest memory right through to the present day. And that is my lived experience. I didn't have like forensic medical
Mm.
evidence or anything like that. And that's why, you know, there's a lot of rumor, you know, the conviction rates are so low and you need to have evidence, and 100%. And PPS and the evidential test that has to be met is completely set up to fail victims. But there's a wee bit of hope for me to campaign with other victims, because I only had my lived experience and I got a conviction, so it can be done.
did he try and deny it?
Yeah, so whenever he got brought in for his initial interview, whenever he was arrested, he apparently was, I don't know what you're talking about. Me and Haileigh have a great relationship. And then I went and done my ABE interviews, and they get typed up into transcripts. And then his solicitor gets a copy of them. And I done like 4 2-hour interviews where I like
Sharing.
said the works, yeah. And I think he probably knew then that he was snookered and he wasn't going to be able to.
And what about see when it did come out? What did the rest of the family say about it?
Yeah, did it cause any divide? Like people
Were
backing
people
him?
saying you were lying, or yeah?
No, nobody said that I was lying. I wasn't supported the way I thought I would have
Yeah.
been, which has taken me a long, long time in the last 3 years to really
Come to terms with.
come to terms with, because I don't think I will ever get over it. And that's actually quite common with the other victims and survivors I work with. It's that the ones that are closest to you, whether it's denial or guilt or whatever, don't support you the way you would expect. But no, there was no there was absolutely none of that. Like, I don't believe you, or it was
There's probably
complete.
more pain as well, because your
Yeah,
mommy brought him into your life, and
yeah,
that's her husband. And
100%.
then
Yeah,
your brother, that's his daddy.
yep,
And nobody wants to believe it about someone they love.
yeah.
And they
Well,
love
it's
you too.
devastating.
So
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not my business to say, but they didn't have a great relationship. It wasn't like my mom was,
Yeah, and
you know, devastated and I've lost the love of my
Mm.
life. It wasn't like that at all, because, like I said before, he
yeah.
was
Yeah.
horrific.
Yeah.
Like,
But you would probably still feel the guilt that
oh
she
yeah,
brought him in
yeah,
to your life,
absolutely, yeah.
what ended up
It's
happening to you.
not something that you would want to have to live with every day, for sure. And I
Definitely
think
not.
that's probably why I choose
How,
not to talk about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
How did he cover it up for so long? Because like, would there not have been like don't want to be graphic, but would there not have been like blood and like
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah.
No, I covered it up for him
Okay.
for so long
Yeah.
because I was so fearful of what he would do to me if, which sounds, I know that sounds mental, because I'm saying what he would do to me. Like, he was
Yeah, is
already
it right then?
Yeah.
doing the worst, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But in my head, I thought, he'll kidnap me, he'll murder me, he'll
Did
kidnap
you
my
never think
family.
about murdering him? Like lashing out and
Yeah.
No,
no.
I can't describe like the fear. I don't know
Just
how
wanted to
how
be
to make you
done and get him to go
understand.
away.
It's
We
like
never,
Yeah.
that,
we never
like
could.
when you're a kid and you're
Mm.
frightened of somebody, or even as an adult, like where you have these wee moments of like dread, you know, where your stomach goes. And
Yeah.
maybe like whenever you're going to fight or one of your first
Nothing worse.
fights or whatever. But imagine that like times
Tenfold.
a million. Yeah.
So see, when you left the house to go to uni, did you try not to come home to visit,
Yep.
or did you
Yep.
come home late? Because some
No,
students usually go to weekends, don't they? And
yeah, I went to university in Belfast still and moved into a wee student house in my second year, and it was it was a wee shithole, but
You
I
loved it.
thought I was living the dream, yeah. And I stayed away as much as I could, but my wee bro's everything to me, so
You couldn't
I
not.
couldn't stay away
Yeah.
because I wanted to see my brother, and I had a great relationship with my brother, and I wanted to look after him.
how did your friends feel when you come out with
Mhm.
the truth of your life?
Yeah. Do you
Like,
know what? Nothing really changed with my friends. Like, my friends have always been everything to me
Mm,
throughout the years, and they were just devastated for me, like heartbroken. And again, like the best thing to say to somebody is, I don't know how we get through this, but anything you need, like I'm right here with you,
mm,
which was the best
mm.
response. They were all devastated for me, but my friends have stepped up and looked after me so much over the
yeah.
last
See,
few years.
for the people watching that are kind of going through the same thing, what would you say to your younger self now? Like, what do you think you should have maybe done? I know
I
it's
th
hard to look back now
no,
because you
no, I
are in
do. No,
fear.
I wish I had of came forward sooner. I wish like whenever my grandparents were still alive and things like that, I wish I had of because I have done this like disclosure, going through justice and recovery and healing
Mm,
all completely on my own with only my friends who are like we're all just winging it.
mm,
Yeah.
I wish I had more family support and been taken care of in that way. And I feel like if I had have come forward whenever I was younger, things would have been different. But then at the same time, it had to be the right time for me. And I wouldn't be like the adult woman that I am now, able to process it and recover and get my life back on track. Like it could have very easily, I'd have come forward sooner and things could have went
mm.
a bad way where I would have maybe like, I don't know,
Well, see,
not
when
went to uni and not
yeah,
been
Yeah.
and
successful
things
and
with
started a business and so on.
definitely could have went another way to
Yep.
turn to drugs and
Yep.
all that. Um, when you went to court, then
hmm
what was the sentence that he got?
So he in the end, it was 43 convictions or 42 convictions because one was left on the books. He got a 16-year sentence, so he's to do 8 in jail and 8 on license.
Do you think that was fair? No,
No, I do not.
life.
What
Is
would
it?
you like to see abusers get
I,
mandatory punishment?
I
Because
mean,
they're all
literally,
kind of
Death penalty.
yeah, I
yeah,
think so as well. To
yeah,
take someone's
They
took their
took
whole
your life.
childhood,
They took
yeah,
your.
take someone's humanity. Like it, it's just
yeah. No, it's and the recovery from it. Like, obviously, I'm still doing the work, but I mean, everything has changed for me. I thought I was brave and courageous to come forward and I was going to get the happily ever after. And I will because it's me and I'm fighting every day
Mm,
to create that life for myself. And I'm proud of that. But everything has completely changed in my life. So it wasn't even just the sexual abuse. It's like now my life in the future too. Whenever I went into court the day of the sentence hearing, I thought it would have at least been fair if he'd have got 10 years in jail
mm.
because it went on for 10 years for me.
Yeah, true. Actually.
But in Northern Ireland, it's you only do half of whatever it
Mm.
is you're sentenced to, and also because he admitted guilt before there was a trial, you get a 25% reduction called credit from.
Credits.
Yeah, credit. I know. Again, the use of language because credit is
Yeah,
like
it's like a
value.
it's a
It's like a
cop.
reward.
It's a reward. That's exactly a
Yeah,
reward.
yeah,
A reward for staying silent for till you
yeah,
were
and
30.
it's
Till you went to it.
till
He
I
wasn't going to
until
say
his
nothing.
Yeah, until
So
his back was against the wall. And that's something that I have campaigned for and spoke up about is that specifically in historic cases,
mm,
because like you say, so many years has went past. He was still living in my family home. He wasn't going to go anywhere,
never
never going to leave. I had to speak up. So why should he
get any
get credit?
credit.
why did
Bad
you
word.
waive your right to anonymity?
Say it again.
Anonymity. I know, I know, it's a hard one. I know.
Go.
Um, So whenever I done my evidence interviews, the last day of the final one, the investigating officer said to me, Haileigh, because of the severity of the charges here, journalists in the court are probably going to pick up on this and it will be in the papers. And I panicked and thought I don't want anybody to know, because I just come out of the interviews feeling like I've done a really good job because I've went into so much detail. And then I thought, well, I don't want anybody else to know all them details. And I kind of sat with it for a wee while and I thought, you know what, like, it's not my shame to carry. I'm not afraid anymore. You tell
And
yourself these things. And I decided that I would tell my story in my own way rather than having
having someone else tell.
some journalists
Yeah.
tell it. Yeah.
And do you feel that was? Would you have done?
Are you glad that you
Yeah,
stand on it?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, the day that BBC story came out, it was great because it, if nothing else, it kind of allowed for, it was like one blanket reveal to all my friends rather than me having to have these devastating
text everyone,
conversations with all my close
and
friends. And
people probably reading about it and then talking, hey, did you see about that wee girl?
yeah,
And you're going, fuck, that's
yeah,
me. I don't want it.
I know. It would have been so awkward. And yeah, I would have then had to have conversations with so many individuals rather than me just.
And then you've started a campaign now. What's the campaign called again?
Renegade.
So I've started
God.
my own business, Renegade Advocacy. So whenever I finished the court case, I went into a role where I was a criminal justice advocate supporting other victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence. And it was funded by the government, and like most things, it was very bureaucratic, and I just didn't feel like it was real advocacy. So I thought I'll go out and do my own thing and raise awareness and give people the support that I think they actually really need. So I resigned last November. I took a bit of a breather for about 6 months and then started planning a white collar boxing event. I just fight for justice. I guess it can be the big launch party. So yeah, I mean, I say I'm a criminal justice advocate, but I'm an awareness raiser. Like, my mission is to get out into businesses and schools and universities and give a victim's perspective, but also say, if somebody is going through this is how you can support them.
Would people be surprised that the number of victims there are in our communities, or is it not as high as what
No,
you
it's
would think?
shockingly high. I
Is
think,
it?
yes. I think the last time I checked, and I don't think this is right anymore, but it was 1 in 6 boys or 1 in 4 girls will have experienced some form of sexual violence before their 18th birthday. And you think of many tens of people you walk past, that's 2 in every 10. And I don't think that's accurate anymore.
But you think it's higher, or
I think it's
think it's
higher.
higher?
And that's only what has been reported. And obviously
Yeah.
it's massively underreported.
You don't do you have kids though?
No, I don't. No.
So how would you, like, you're going to be even more protective
Yeah.
of your kids, because isn't it always usually someone close to or
Yeah,
someone
and
you know?
it's like, I think it's over 80% of every case is like familiar to the victim.
So I let my kids. Tommy doesn't, but I let my kids go to sleepovers and stuff like that. Tommy's very strict on that.
Yeah.
But that's making me worry about stuff like
Yeah,
that.
no,
So
I wouldn't let any
no,
of my kids go to a sleepover. No way.
see, that's
And you know what? It's devastating, because you're probably going to come away from this now and think, who is in my life? Because you don't want to think that you have trusted somebody, or that there's people
yeah.
in your life that are even associates of,
But
or
yeah,
potentially able to do that. But they're doing it. And whenever I was in that job, like, I was working on cases that were coming in, within the last 24 hours from the PSNI, and working with them victims and survivors. And I'm talking like school teachers, bus drivers, childminders, partners of childminders.
Well, it's a sick world, isn't it? Do you think sometimes the victims get they stay anonymous because they're afraid of being
Judged.
yeah,
Yeah.
and even shamed,
Yeah.
recently in the media, Conor McGregor's
Mm.
had to pay lost a civil suit.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of his, because he's obviously a famous guy, a lot of his fans are giving the victims stick, I've seen online.
Yeah. But that's like, we live in a world where people do victim blame, and that also.
Did you ever experience any of it?
No, I didn't. And I don't know if that's maybe because I was a child whenever it happened, and it shouldn't make a difference if you're sexually abused or sexually assaulted when you're an adult or a child or not. Even within our like justice system, victim blaming is a real thing, and it's part of the reason why a lot of victims don't get a prosecution decision is because PPS make assumptions that a jury of our peers in a trial will have a bad impression of who the victim is, or they'll have like myths about rape, like, well, why was she drunk? Why was why was he alone with this person? Blah blah blah.
Mm.
So you're snookered even from the start because there's assumptions being made about what a jury would think in court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, the Conor McGregor case is just, I mean, Nikita Hand is an absolute hero and represents so many victims and survivors.
Because her thing got thrown out of court twice then or something? Or?
So she pursued a criminal case and didn't get a prosecution decision. And then she pursued a civil case after that to try and get some form of justice. But this is just my opinion on what I have read about it. I imagine that the evidential test wasn't met because of maybe discrepancies in statements or things like that, because she didn't disclose immediately. That's going to translate in court to, well, why didn't you say sooner? And she's going, like, on the stand, she would have got.
Yeah, because as you said,
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of evidence to back it up, don't you?
It needs to be like done in such a way, like the way that the evidential test is set up, the way that the narrative and the mindset of people even who work within the judiciary, it's so against victims getting justice. But her, like, pursuing a criminal case and not getting a prosecution, and then pursuing the civil case, I think that whenever I've thought about it, it nearly would have been harder for her to have achieved what she has achieved in a civil case, because with a civil case, there's like a probability thing, and if you don't have a criminal conviction, then you have to prove that it did happen. So the fact that she didn't have a civil or a criminal prosecution would have meant that she was already up against, it wasn't taken any further in a criminal case. So it would have been even harder, I think, for her to prove in a civil suit that it did happen. And people are like, oh, it's only a civil case. Like, she would have still had to go in and say over and over and over again in detail what was done to her. Yeah. And there was a trial. So she was cross-examined.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean any different. It just meant
different.
that she was failed in the criminal case because of how it's set up, the evidential test, all of the assumptions, all of the judgment, all of the shame put on the victims that PPS didn't think that they would have secured a prosecution. But I mean, it's clear as day that he did it.
How do you feel about, I know you waited a number of years before you commit, but a couple of years ago, Bill Cosby, remember, that was a big case in the media, and there was women coming out who were saying that he sexually abused them in the 70s, and have just waited to now to come out. Why do you think it takes so long for victims to come forward?
Well, don't forget that, like, even with social media and women and being empowered and victims being empowered, the conversations are happening now. They weren't before.
Yeah.
So even like our parents' generation, like, you would never have, some people wouldn't even have left a marriage if it was full of violence because it wasn't the right thing to do. If people stay in things, like, our society culture is like changing, do you know what I mean? If people are starting to come forward and they're being believed and they're being supported, that didn't happen before. So whenever you were growing up, like, it wasn't even, I think the law changed where it was classed as rape if you were married. So before, I think maybe like 15, 20 years ago, you couldn't be raped if you were married to the perpetrator. So your husband could have been raping you and it wasn't called rape.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, what, 15, 20 years ago
Yeah.
only? Like, I'm 33, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's shocking. Like, of course people wouldn't have come forward. And also, again, it's high profile. These, like, perpetrators are so manipulative, and it's so hard for us as normal sound people to think that people can be so calculated and premeditated, but they are.
Like you say, they're high profile, whether you're a celebrity or you're a parent,
Yep.
You're in a position of power,
Yep. And
so the
that's
victims
yeah.
don't want to go against it.
And that's what the biggest aggravating factor is in a criminal case, is the abuse of a position of trust.
Mm.
So it's the fact that it was like, for me, it was a step parent that abused his position of trust, and that was what carried like quite a hefty sentence.
See, with your step family, did you have a relationship with Evans at all, or not really?
Not really, no.
Did
Not
did
really.
any of them reach out to you once you
Yeah.
saw them out public?
A couple of them did, yeah. And just they were supportive.
And
Yeah.
have you since the conviction, have you seen or spoke to Tommy before?
No, he's in jail.
So you would,
So he was remanded from June 2021 and sentenced in November, and that was him.
you haven't seen or spoken to him since.
No.
Yeah.
Was
But
your-
another thing actually on that, which is quite shocking and how it's just so unfair for victims, is that the probation board have this service for victims whose perpetrators got a custodial sentence. They can write in and say, look, this is how this has had an impact on my life. I want to be contacted whenever he's going to be or she's going to be released. I done that,
Mm.
and it wasn't readily available. I again researched it myself and found out. I done that. They sent me out the letter with the date. All I asked for was to know when he was going to get out,
Mm.
and it literally said blah 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 release date, and it was blank. And I was like, fuck me, he's had one job. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I had built up for months and months and months to contact, because I was like, this is the scurry date that I'm
Yeah.
dreading. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then it was blank, and I lifted the phone, and I was like,
What are you doing?
are you
Yeah.
like, are you sniffing glue? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is all I asked for. And they were like, oh, you know, we're short staffed.
We're short-staffed,
The usual
Jesus
shit, you know
Christ.
what I mean? We're short staffed. I was off on my holidays. I'm usually the one that does this. And I said, right, okay, well, can you please send it out? Sent me out the information, and there's this like a leaflet thing where I can fill it out and say the impact that it has had on me.
Mm.
And there's a part in it where you can put in areas that you don't want the perpetrator to be like rehomed or placed into or whatever. And I said, that's obviously for the purpose of you don't want to run into them if you're from the same area.
Yeah.
And I phoned and I said, see this part of this form? Will he have access to that? Yeah, he'll have access to that. And I said, so you're asking me to pretty much put down where it is
Where
that
you-
I'm living that I don't want him to have access to, and you're going to fucking hand it over to him?
That's crazy.
See, when you get his address, forward us. We'll start a campaign. We'll be at the front.
Why do you think,
Pedophile,
why do you
pedophile.
think I
Start a
don't
box.
move the white collar? You know what I mean? I'm starting there 5 foot fuck all in the ring surrounded by all these boxers. Like, that's definitely like a conscious thing where I've been like, oh, well, if I'm surrounded by people that can protect me, like, I know that.
Was there
Because I
was
do
there
have a
anything
fear.
over the years that did help you, like
Yeah, like a comfort.
a comfort or take a mind off or
Traveling,
children?
music,
Mm.
dancing.
Yeah.
I just honestly see now, I'm like, life's a movie. Like, life is so short. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Do your thing. Like, have a good time. Laugh as much as you can. Surround yourself with sound individuals that have got your back and that you have their back,
Mm.
and look after each other. Because I know, like, there's so much evil out there. I mean, I know that there's people in amongst us every single day that are capable of really bad things, that have done really bad
It's
things.
so weird. I just discovered this song. It come up on Instagram the other day. Into the net. I sent into a group.
It's crazy.
And it's about this guy. He's in love with a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And the video is even sick as well. He goes and raps the door, and it says, like, she's only 16-year-old. Leave her alone.
Mhm.
Then he goes around their bedroom window and he's
Mhm.
like
Jumps in.
singing to her in the window, and he
Yeah,
jumps in.
It's
fucking
crazy.
weirdo creep.
Like,
Like,
it's a
fuck
crazy-
off
this
away
was
from
meant
my
to be a
daughter. She's only
big song,
16.
like,
It was a
Mhm.
big
in
song.
the 80s. And I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
do you have you
End of the
know
night.
what?
It's,
End of the
it's a
night?
bit of a funky one, is it? I don't
No,
know.
it's like a ballad. I'll show you
Yeah.
rather. But the guy's reading the comments, and obviously people's like ripping into him, but in a comical way. But then there's other people like praising him. Oh, his vocals were so good, and I remember his song reminds me of being a kid. And I going, no one was. It was on the radio in the
Yeah.
80s. No one was frowning on it. And
Mm.
if you try to do something like that today, it'd
locked up.
be
I know. I watched clips too of like women being interviewed back in the day, like movie stars and singers, and they're like 15, 16, and there's these like 50 to 60-year-old
see that as well.
presenters,
That's
and they're
crazy.
like just
They're asking me to get kissing cheek and
no,
all.
I
And,
seen that one.
objectifying, like
Yeah.
so inappropriate. Like, see if that was like any of my friends'
Mhm.
kids, you'd have them in a headlock. Do you know what I
I
mean?
know.
It's shocking, but the voices are getting louder and they're united now, and like the conversation is very current. Like all these strategies in violence against women and girls and in domestic violence, sexual violence, like it's a hot topic at the minute, rightly so, and it's not going to go away because so many people have been impacted by it, either in the past or currently, or know somebody that has been impacted by it.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of in a fucked up way, like connected and wanting to end this, which
Yeah.
is so great and empowering, I think, for me. And I'm so glad to be part of that change and doing my bit.
Yeah, it's great. It's strength in numbers too. So it is brilliant that you've all connected and are coming together to
Yeah.
tackle it, because I have $4. Like
Yeah.
I would
Oh my
like,
God.
I would kill someone
Yeah.
if
Rightly
Yeah.
so,
like,
yeah.
and I ain't
Mhm.
joking. I would
Yeah.
like not metaphorically speaking, I'd kill someone. So
Allegedly.
no, that's
But before we wrap it up, do you want to give maybe where
yeah.
people could go
Support
to
systems
support
for
systems?
victims, and
Yeah.
where could they do? Where could is there phone numbers or websites
The one that if somebody's like immediately like needs support or wants to get something off their chest, I think there is a sexual and domestic violence helpline, which is 24-hour. I'm renegade.advocacy on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out. I'll do what I can. In terms of like going to the police, absolutely do that if that's what you want to do. It's not an easy journey at all in the slightest. If it would benefit them to reach out to me first to have a conversation about that, please do. And in terms of like support and therapy, like tell your friends and let your friends protect you and support you through it.
Yeah, 100%.
It is quite hard to for me to say confidently, go here, here, and
yeah.
here. Victim support was another good one for me.
Yeah.
There's mixed reviews about some of the other ones,
Yeah.
but
reach out to anyway to
reach
Renegade
out, yeah.
that advocacy.
Yeah.
And I had to
Thank you for coming
say
on. Yeah.
you're a legend. You're doing the Lord's work. You need people like you who have the courage to speak up about it. And you went through your young life being afraid.
Yeah.
Now you found your voice, and hopefully it gives voice to other young
Yeah.
ladies and young boys who've been victims.
Absolutely, yeah.
So thanks for coming on. Yeah.
No, thank
And,
you. And just to say to you too, and Patty from the lab, like thank you for the support with the fight for justice.
Yeah, no problem.
It means a whole lot.
I was the MC. I was in it.
Should have got a better MC in them.
She couldn't
you
have
were
got better.
invited, you stood us up for
alone.
fuck's
I was
sake.
sitting in the house.
No, it wasn't.
It was brilliant crack. It was great. It was
Yeah, it
one
was
of the
a
best
brilliant
nights of
night,
my
aye.
life. It really was. Drag queen, ring girls, and all
Really?
that.
No, I was everyone wearing. It was like a formal
Yeah,
attire.
black
aye.
tie.
It was brilliant.
I'll do another one, sure.
I'll go to the next one. I'll go to the next one.
Okay.
Must have been away. Like you just said him in the
Yeah.
house.
It's
But
all good.
thank you for
Tommy
joining.
held it down for you. Don't worry about it.
Thank you for joining us, and see you next week.
Was him going all the way.